Hello. We are back with another episode of Turn the Page podcast, and I'm running about a day late and a dollar short, but we are not going to let that stop us. I am so excited to just get back into the swing of things of recording this podcast and being in your ears every single week. And I'm just so grateful to have you here. So, welcome. As you know, if you've been here before, I am Paige. If you don't, it's nice to have you with us. And today I want to talk about something that really just came to me before I sat down here because I was like, what do I want to talk about this week? And it just kind of dropped in. I want to talk about expectations because how often do we set expectations on ourselves or on other people? And a lot of times those expectations can be unspoken externally. Internally, a lot of times I feel like they are spoken and can be really hard to let go of when life decides to send us down a different direction. And I experienced this a little bit this morning, but I have experienced it significantly in my life. And this morning, basically, what it started with was just like not feeling like I was going to get everything accomplished today that I wanted to get accomplished before I leave for my daughter's volleyball tournament. And there's a past version of me that really would have got hung up on that. That would have like went down a little shame spiral of like, Paige, you stayed up too late last night. You should have went to bed earlier so that you could have gotten up earlier and you could have accomplished these things faster or rushed through or skipped over like my morning routine that I do to help keep myself grounded, especially when I'm going to be in a building full of like hundreds of people and multiple volleyball games going on at once. But instead of doing that, I just kind of accepted it. Like my body needed some extra rest. Okay, I slept in a little bit. I allowed myself to get my morning routine done and to take care of my body and to do these things that I knew that were going to set me up for success later on today, and really just faced the feelings of disappointment and observed the shame that was kind of trying to trickle in that told me that I did something wrong. And I think that that's the thing. We can set internal expectations for ourselves. It's like, this is what our life is supposed to look like. This is what we're meant to accomplish in a day. These are all of the things that we're supposed to juggle so that we can seem like we've got it all together or, feel like we are successful or just feel comfortable in our life and in our skin. And then life happens. Life happens because we're human. We're either tired or the kids get sick or weather gets crazy and a snowstorm is on its way. And the washing machine quits, like whatever it is that happens, these things seem so minor and they can happen on a major scale too, but these things happen in life and they can derail us and kind of knock us off course for these internal expectations that we set for ourselves. And like I said, what happened to me this morning was very minor. And I was able to kind of just like move through it really quickly. And guess what? Ended up having time to accomplish all of the things that I wanted to accomplish before we had to leave. It's funny. It's funny how life works out that way because a lot of times it's our resistance. It's our, sticky feelings, the negativity, the disappointment, the victimization that we allow to cling onto that gets in the way. That normally gets in the way versus if we would just find the acceptance faster, then we would actually probably be able to meet some of these expectations much quicker. But we're stubborn because we think that we have all of the answers. We think that we have it all figured out. We think that we should be able to accomplish all the things that we were meant to accomplish. And if we can't, or if we don't, or if things go a little sideways, our ego wants to find somebody to blame. And how easy is it for us to blame ourselves? Or how easy is it for us to blame life or somebody else rather than just accepting the feelings that come up and moving on and moving through? Now, on a bigger scale, how has this played out in my life? How could this possibly be playing out in your life? Well, the biggest ways in which that played out in my life for me were with my marriages. And, I remember being a young girl and oh man, was I in love with being in love. Like, I just loved romance. I loved chasing boys. I loved that feeling and that excitement and that passion of the beginning. And typically, as a young child, I always chased the wrong boys. And that was probably where some of that resistance and stickiness was coming in. My body was like, yo, let's shift gears here. But I didn't want to listen, and that's okay. But when I got married the first time at 21 years old and the second time at 26, I think I was 26. Um, not that it matters. Early 20s, late 20s. But when I got married, I had these expectations, these internal expectations of what I wanted my life to look like, what I wanted our relationship to look like, what I wanted for myself, and how I felt I should be in this life and in these relationships and as a parent. Okay. That did not happen, obviously. Two divorces in your 20s, you definitely hit the mark when it came to internal expectations and external expectations. But what I realized is, like, looking back on those things, those internal expectations that a lot of times were unspoken expectations were really, really hard on me because it filled me with so much shame and it filled me with so much guilt whenever I wasn't able to attain them, whether it was for myself or for my partner or for my child or for my parents or for the world in general. And so now being in this place, in this position that I am, and being able to witness those past versions of myself, I was in a way setting myself up for failure. And I didn't know that. I didn't realize that because I just felt like these expectations that were being set by me or by the standards of the world was the only way that I was going to stay safe. Like, these are the expectations. This is what I want my relationship to look like. This is what I want it to feel like all of the time. And this is what I want to look like. This is what I want to feel like. This is the kind of parent that I want to be, and would compare that to other people and then internalize that and turn it into an expectation for myself. And I didn't know how to communicate that. I didn't know how to communicate the shitstorm that was going on in my brain because the shit storm was continuous and it never stopped and it never got quiet. And so it was like this internal battery all of the time that was just going and going and going, and this monkey mind that continued to berate me. And what happens when you have this war going on inside of you? You begin to want to project it. And so what did I do as this young woman? I would blame. I would blame my partner, or I would blame my parents, or I would blame my life circumstance, or I would try and control those people, my child, my partner, and micromanage even myself and my feelings and avoid them so that then I could still try to hold on to some semblance of that control and that false sense of safety. And it all stemmed again from these internal expectations that I would have and I would hold on to. And I didn't learn those lessons in my first relationship, in my first marriage. And when it fell apart, I, avoided feeling all of the feelings and all of the grief that came with that process. And I carried that into my next relationship. I carried that into my second marriage. And those expectations, became even louder internally and then louder externally, because then I was trying to once again control another person, control our relationship, control the way that I parent, control my child, because those internal expectations were festering inside of me so significantly that I just felt like it was like this uncontrollable boil inside my skin. This uncontrollable boil inside my skin that just made me want to scream. It made me want to scream, and I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't know how to process it, and I didn't know how to feel it, and I was so terrified. I was so terrified of the shame and the guilt and the confusion and what it would show me. I was terrified of the truth. I was terrified of the truth of who I was because I always believed that I was the problem. I always believed that there was something wrong with me, and I hate that for that version of myself. I hate that. I hate that for both versions of myself, that I was in my first marriage and that I was in my second marriage. And I hate the ways in which that projected onto the ways that I parented and the ways that I showed up as a wife and a partner. Now, it's not like I was this terrible person, monster, just like stomping around, but there were so many parts and pieces of my life that I was trying to micromanage and control based on these internal expectations, and as well as external expectations that I was absorbing as my own, that I wasn't able to be very present very often. And I would dissociate, or I would drink, or I would stay busy, or I would, become so hyper focused on food and exercise and all of these things as distractions from what was going on inside of me. And so, come 2021, when I take away alcohol and I stop drinking, and, it's amazing what that did for my life. I'm 5 years alcohol free this year. And it's crazy to think how far I've come. It's crazy to think how far I've come because I never would have expected that. I never would have expected that. And it makes me really proud of myself. It makes me really proud that I took that very big distraction out of my toolbox, because that toolbox that I had before wasn't serving us, was not serving us. And so, 5 years later, it's like being able to see and recognize these expectations, the expectations that I still, up until recently, was really clinging on to. Like, okay, what I expected, like, love and relationships to look like, that's really shifted this last year. The mindset that I've had to shift and how that's reflected in how I showed up in my marriages before. I used to be this person that was obsessed with the chase and obsessed with the passion and obsessed with, all of this like fun, fiery energy. Yeah, it's fun for a while, but it's not sustainable in a relationship. You have to find your moments of spontaneity and excitement and passion, but it can't be what a relationship lives on. Because when you continue to feed that fire, a lot of times it can grow out of control. And I've experienced that. And so it's like, reshaping and reshifting what my expectations are of myself or of a future partner. Because I haven't dated in years. I mean, I got divorced 3 years ago. This is terrible. My concept of time has like gone out the window. I'm unsure. What day is it? What year is it? I think I'm in a weird time warp. But I haven't dated since my divorce. And I think that's for a reason. I think it's because there was a lot of a lot of lessons that I needed to learn about relationships and about the expectations that I had on myself in relationships, because I always had this idea that I needed to abandon myself in relationships so that the other person would love me. Again, another internal expectation that would then turn into bitterness and resentment later on. So you see all of these like ucky feelings, like all of these really harsh, ucky feelings that are coming up in correlation to these unmet expectations that I had internally on myself that then projected externally on my relationships. I always had these expectations of what kind of daughter I would be and what kind of life I would, give my parents as a reflection of the way that they raised me. And there was a lot of shame and guilt around that when I went through 2 divorces in my 20s, because that wasn't what they wanted for me. That wasn't what they wanted for me. They didn't want to see me as a, double divorcee with 2 kids with 2 different men and, now single and making it on my own. Like, that wasn't what they envisioned. And it wasn't because they want to judge me. It was just because they wanted to feel like I was safe. And, I didn't meet that expectation. That was really, really hard. It was a really hard pill to swallow. And there was, again, shame and guilt that came with that internally because I felt like it was my duty as their daughter to meet their expectations. And so we put all of this pressure on ourselves. We put all this pressure on ourselves. And then, we have expectations for, who we are as parents. And then we have expectations on our kids for who we want them to be, again, in reflection to how we raise them. And if we don't feel like we're meeting those expectations, we can project that onto our kids without even realizing it. And then if our kids aren't meeting our expectations, we can, again, be filled with that bitterness and that resentment. I have this conversation with one of my girls' dads, with Macy's dad, a lot because, she's 13. And we both had to really shift the ways in which that we communicate with her because we were both really good at putting internal unspoken expectations on her and then wanting to see if she was going to hit the mark. And this is a pattern that I noticed again from the time, when she was younger and then in little ways. And then now as she's getting older, it's like, okay, I don't want to put unspoken expectations on myself. I don't want to put unspoken expectations on her. I don't want other people to do that to me. I don't want to do that to her. So what do we do? How do we kind of navigate that or walk through it? It's like, for an example, this is something, again, that I talk to her dad about often. It's like I'll watch in their communication because I do this too. I'm just using this as an example. He'll be like, hey, do you want to come with me to go do, chores and scoop stalls? Because if you come and help me, it'll make it go so much faster. It's a question. Okay. It's a question. And in his mind, he's setting an expectation that because she loves the horses and because she wants to be a part of this business, that she's going to say yes. She's going to be like, yeah, sure. Of course I want to. But she's 13. The weather is fucking cold outside. And I don't know anybody who wants to sign up and volunteer to go scoop horse shit out of a stall. I know I don't, but that's why I don't have livestock. Anyways, that gets spoken. Okay. And he's internally setting this expectation. So then when she responds and she's like, yeah, I guess, his expectation isn't getting met because she doesn't want to help. You see where I'm getting at with this? And so then he would get upset and get mad and be like, fine, forget it. I'll just go. Again, I'm sharing this because this is a conversation that we have had, and this is something that him and I are working on together because we both do this in different ways. And so we're holding each other accountable. And we have a close enough relationship that I know. And he listens to this. So thank you for allowing me to share parts of our co-parenting skills. But I then had a conversation with him that was like, okay, when this happens, do you realize you're setting an expectation, an unspoken expectation on her? You are expecting her to want to help you do this thing. And she is 13 and she is not going to want to help you do this. And so how can we shift this as a parent? We can be more direct with our communication. I want you to come and help me do this. I know you don't want to. I don't want to either, but it's going to make it go by so much faster. So we are setting the boundary for what it is we want our child to do. And if we want them to come and do it and come and help for real, then we set the standard. We be direct. We communicate it. And this can translate to our partners. Telling people what you need versus setting an unspoken expectation and seeing whether or not they can figure it out. Okay? Because you're setting you and you're setting them up for failure, up for bitterness, up for resentment, up for all of these sticky, energetic feelings in between the two of you. So how, again, do we combat that? Directness with the way that we communicate our needs, our wants, our desires. And so then that person can choose to either step up to the plate and meet that need, or they can choose not to. Now, as a child, typically you're going to have to meet that need for your parent. But again, it's just so much easier. Yeah, she might not like it, but then there's no weird stickiness. She's not like, well, now my dad's mad at me. And so then she doesn't have to like internalize that and then feel guilty about it or feel like she didn't meet the expectation because she didn't respond the way in which he expected her to. You see what I mean? Do you see how that can clear up so much stickiness when we just tell our kids what it is that we need from them? I need you to do this. And I need you to do this. Like when I tell her to clean her room, it's not like I'm like passive aggressively being like, gosh, I hate it when your room's messy. This place is a crap hole. Like, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. It's gross. I'm not feeding into the shame spiral. What I'm doing is saying, I need you to clean your room because it dysregulates my nervous system when there's that much crap all over the floor and I can hardly get the door open. Okay? Okay. Now, when you get your own house, when you have your own place, when you have your own space, do with it what you will, my darling. But here, there is an expectation. And I am asking you to meet that expectation because I am the parent and you don't pay rent. But in all reality, unmet, unspoken, internal or external expectations can really, oh gosh, they can kill so much joy in our lives. They can kill so much time and so much energy. And when we battle that internally, and then we project that externally, it can just create so much discomfort. It can create so much discomfort. And so I think that one of the things that made me want to talk about this is because I know how relatable it is. I know how so many of us deal with these things internally. And again, like if you struggle with that monkey mind, if you struggle with the way that you communicate in relationships, don't shame yourself for it. The first thing that you should do is observe it. Just observe it. Just observe your patterns and see how they're playing out in your day-to-day life, in your relationships with yourself, with others, with your kids, with your partner, with your friends. Whatever it is, observe it. And then start recognizing how things are unwiring. And then you can peel back the layers. And then you can peel back the layers so that you can get to the root of what it is that you truly need. Because that's the thing. When we allow all of this external noise and we allow the internal noise to dictate the actions that we take on a regular basis, we're not necessarily getting to the truth of what it is that we desire. We're not necessarily making decisions that actually are in alignment with what we value. We're just in reaction mode. We're in reaction to the noise. So allow yourself to observe it. Allow yourself to get quiet enough and reduce the distractions that keep us from that truth and start paying attention. Not just for you, but for the people around you, so that you're not putting all of this pressure on yourself and you're not putting all of this pressure on them. You're not doing it intentionally. I never did any of that intentionally in my marriages or in the way that I parented or the way that I treated myself. It doesn't make me bad. It makes me human. It makes me trying to navigate this crazy world that, we have access to so many people and so much information all of the time that's continually telling us that we need to be better, do better, try harder. When in reality, sometimes we just need to chill and take a step back and stop adding to the checklist of all of the things that we think that we should be doing, or our kids should be doing, or our partners should be doing. So, this is my challenge for you this week, is I want you to spend a little bit of time each day just observing your feelings, observing your expectations that you put on yourself or others. Maybe get out a journal. What unmet expectations do I have? What unspoken expectations do I have for myself, for my kids, for my partner. And then start listing them. Write them down. You don't have to do anything with them, but you can observe them. You can recognize them. You can have awareness around them. And that is the best fucking place to start. All right. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me go on and on and on about the things that rattle around in this brain of mine. And I hope that you resonate with some part of this conversation. I hope that you find something in it that unlocks something within you that allows you a little piece of liberation from the monkey mind and from the pressures that we put on ourselves, because you deserve it. You deserve it. You are worthy of it. And I'm so grateful for you. Please, please, if you enjoyed this conversation, share it with a friend, share it on socials. Come say hi to me over on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook at Turn the Paige Podcast, and leave a rate or review if you feel called. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Love you. Bye.